Welcome to another installment of Donning the Armor. This morning we will begin in Numbers chapter 10, verse 1. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Make 2 silver trumpets for yourself. You shall make them of hammered work. You shall use them for calling the congregation and for directing the movement of the cants. So here we get silver trumpets are being made. These are going to be the trumpets used to call on the congregation. You know, we see this all throughout Scripture, but we see it all throughout early, basic human history. Armies being moved by trumpet. You know, you see it in the Revolutionary War. You see it in the Civil War. You see it in the Middle Ages. You'll see them blowing trumpets all the time. Processions. Well, in this case, 2 silver trumpets are being made for the congregation so that they know as what is going to be done and when the Lord is calling them. So Moses is going to have the artisans work hammered work of silver to create 2 trumpets so that the congregation could be called on. And it's interesting because this is a very large congregation. I mean, 2.5 million people, even tents, that they're spread out over quite a bit. So these trumpets are going to have to be pretty loud. And they're going to have to be able to hear them and know what they do, because word of mouth is going to take too long to get people to come together as a congregation. When they blow both of them, all the congregation shall gather before you at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. But if they blow only one, then the leaders, the heads of the divisions of Israel, shall gather to you. So, people will know, if you blow 2, everyone's coming. If you blow only 1, then only the heads of the tribes are going to come up. How will they know that only 1 is being blown versus 2? Don't know much about trumpets, but I imagine you can tell the difference between 2 or 1, or they're being created in such a fashion that they kind of make a different kind of sound so you can understand when both are being blown. Once again, not a music person, so that's a question for another person altogether. When you sound the advance, the cants that lie on the east side shall begin their journey. When you sound the advance the second time, then the cants that lie on the south side shall begin their journey. They shall sound the call for them to begin their journeys. And when the assembly is to be gathered together, you shall blow, but not sound the advance. The sons of Aaron the priest shall blow the trumpets, and these shall be to you as an ordinance forever throughout your generations. So they're saying when you're going to sound the advance, there's going to be multiple soundings. So when the people who are dwelling on the east side of the tabernacle, you blow that, they go. Then you're going to blow it again to let the people on the south side know that it's their turn to fall in line. And as you go through. So they'll know based on how many times it's being blown that what they're supposed to do. But they'll also know altogether because the cloud will have moved. If you're blowing it advanced, then the cloud will be moved off the tabernacle. When you go to war in your land against the enemy who oppresses you, then you shall sound an alarm with the trumpets. And you shall be remembered before the Lord your God, and you will be saved from your enemies. So, when people are coming against you, you blow an alarm, and the Lord will remember. And I always have to point out, remembered by the Lord is one of those words that is transliterated from the Hebrew, obviously, and the Hebrew from the Aramaic. And it doesn't, like with Noah, it doesn't mean, oh yeah, that's right, God forgot you were there, and you're going to blow the trumpet, you're going to sound an alarm, and I'm going to wake up and be like, oh, that's right, they're down there. I forgot I was supposed to be watching them. It's that he's going to act on your behalf at that point. He's going to remember you. He's going to decide to act in that moment. Not remember as in forgot. Also, in the day of your gladness, in your appointed feasts, and at the beginning of your months you shall blow the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings. And they shall be a memorial for you before your God. I am the Lord your God. So you're going to blow the trumpets over these sacrifices. You're going to do these things, and you're going to do them because I'm God. This is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do as a memorial before me. I am the Lord your God. This is what I've commanded. This is what you're going to follow through and do. Now it came to pass on the 12th day of the 2nd month in the 2nd year that the cloud was taken up from above the tabernacle of the testimony. So here we have the 12th day of the 2nd month in the 2nd year. All this time, they've been camped at Sinai. They went from Egypt to Sinai. Now they've been encamped at Sinai for all this time. Exodus takes place over nearly 2 years. Leviticus takes place over about a month. Now here you have in Numbers, the children of Israel are finally set to move out and march toward the promised land. God had to set them at his mountain, give them his law, settle them in, make sure they understood what is expected of them. And now he's moving out, which is funny because it reminds me so much as, just say, becoming a parent. I mean, I've been a parent as long as I've been a Christian. I was an unbeliever and an atheist before I had kids. But as an atheist, I never could understand anything of God, obviously, I'm an atheist. But in a lot of ways, I couldn't understand God's relationship with his children. I couldn't understand why he did the things he did. Being a parent makes it so much easier to understand these things. When you get to go somewhere with your kids, especially on a long trip, prep. You take that a long time. Then you explain what is expected of them. Then you set out on the journey. And it's not easy. But you can see that same thing come to pass from Exodus to Leviticus to Numbers. You can see that same thing that you would do as a parent yourself, where you have to sit your kids down and say, look, this is what's expected of you. You can't be hitting each other. You can't be screaming at each other. No biting. Keep everything above the belt. No low blows. No throwing toy cars. I wanted to strangle that little girl when she did that. She was like 3, but still. Or 6, but not the point. Anyway. Kids don't always behave, and you need to set what you want done. And then you move them out. And you can see God walk. You can see the father figure of God throughout Scripture, especially the Old Testament when you read it. As a parent, you can see each and every step of him being a father. And the way that you would interact with your kids. You can see that fatherly nature of God in every aspect throughout Scripture. And this, to me, is just yet another one. But here we finally see the children of Israel being moved on from Mount Sinai, being moved on through the wilderness to head towards the promised land. Finally, after all this time of being settled in one place, they are now going to move out with the knowledge of what God expects of them, what their Father expects from them during this journey, as they go towards the promised land, their destination of where he's told them they're going. And the children of Israel set out from the wilderness of Sinai on their journeys. Then the cloud settled down in the wilderness of Paran. So they started out for the first time according to the command of the Lord by the hand of Moses. So they see the cloud go out from Sinai, going out to the wilderness of Paran. So now they're going to follow it. They're going to leave out just as God had commanded. They're going to blow those trumpets just as God had commanded to move out towards their new location as he slowly moves them towards the promised land. The standard of the camp of the children of Judah set out first according to their armies. Over their army was Nahshon, the son of Abinadab. So we're going to get these again. We're going to get the names and the armies. But once again, I love the fact that it's so interesting to me that the tribe of Judah, the tribe that Jesus would come out of, is the spearhead going to send out the children of Israel. As if the figure of God, that Lion of Judah, is going out ahead of his people. Over the army of the tribe of the children of Issachar was Nethanel, the son of Zoar. And over the army of the tribe of the children of Zebulun was Eliab, the son of Helon. So the three tribes at the east going out first. And now as this has happened, the tabernacle is being taken down. And the sons of Gershon and the sons of Merari set out carrying the tabernacle. So they pull everything down and they go out. Then the standard of the camp of Reuben was set out according to their armies. Over their army was Elizur, the son of Shador. Over the army of the tribe of the children of Simeon was Shemiel, the son of Zurishaddai. And over the army of the tribe of the children of Gad was Elisaph, the son of Duel. So you had two of the Levite families following after the first three tribes. Now you have Reuben and Simeon and Gad following after them. Next you have the next set of Levites in verse 21. Then the Kohathites set out carrying the holy things. The tabernacle would be prepared for their arrival. So they're carrying all the holy things, and as we mentioned before, everything that is inside the tabernacle, all of these holy implements would be covered, would have the curtains put over them, the badger skins put over them, so they are not even looking upon them. They get to carry them. They're not put in wagons. They are being carried by the poles of acacia wood overlaid with gold, as told, as commanded by the Lord. And they're now carrying these things on their shoulders through following the tribe of Gad. And the standard of the camp of the children of Ephraim was set out according to their armies. Over their army was Elishama, the son of Ammihud. Over the army of the tribe of the children of Manasseh was Gamaliel, the son of Pedazur. And over the army of the tribe of the children of Benjamin was Abidan, the son of Gideoni. The one that always pops out to me every time, and I kind of slow down when I read it, is Gamaliel, because Gamaliel would be the name eventually of one of the great Pharisees who ended up being the teacher of Paul, when Paul was a Pharisee as a child. That always pops out at me. It's not the same person, obviously. Centuries later, maybe more than 1,000 years later, but still, the name pops out. So now you have this next group of three following after the Kohathites. And then, in verse 25, the standard of the camp of the children of Dan, the rear guard over all the camps, set out according to their armies. Over their army was Ahazar, the son of Ammishaddai. Over the army of the tribe of the children of Asher was Pagiel, the son of Ochran. And over the army of the tribe of the children of Naphtali was Ahira, the son of Anan. The standard of the tribe of Dan is supposedly the eagle, if I have that right, because Dan, one of the curses placed on Dan, the child, over Jacob before he died, was that he would be a snake among his people. Eagles eat snakes, so they took the standard of the snake to offset the curse of being the serpent, basically. Thus was the order of the march of the children of Israel according to their armies when they began their march. So, as they're marching out, this is the order they were told to be in earlier in Numbers. So this is how they're going through and marching. And this is how they will always march, in this exact order. And then same way they will break down their camp, facing in the same directions, east, south, west, and north. So now Moses said to Hoab, the son of Reuel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law. So here we see oftentimes Reuel And we see him name different things. And we're never really given a discussion for why it's Ruel or Jethro, or why is it different names in different places. But we see that often in Scripture. We will see Simon, then Simon Peter, then just Peter, and in some cases still see written Cephas, which is what Peter is translated from. So we'll see that often, and I think it depends on where and who is speaking, what area they're in. Because although we now live in a very multicultural society where we don't go by different names, we go by the same name across multiple languages. Back then, depending on what language was being spoken, your name would change. And you understood it, and you just went with it. We have a whole branches of Christian thought now that is, you have no salvation if you call Jesus Jesus, because his name is Yeshua. But the is being put on later because that's not what he would have been called. It just would have been Yeshua. Or, so if you're not calling him by his proper name, then you have no salvation in him. But Scripture, because Scripture was not written in Aramaic or Hebrew as it comes to the New Testament, it was written in Greek, that his name is never Yeshua in Scripture. It's Jesus, Jesus, because that was the Greek version of Yeshua, of Joshua. See, names weren't the same as they are now. These people were fine. They spoke multiple languages. People have this upsetness. Well, Jesus spoke Aramaic. Jesus was God, but let's be honest, just based on where Jesus lived in Galilee, which was a heavy Gentile area, Jesus more than likely spoke Greek, which was the universal language at the time, which is why we have the Septuagint, which was the Old Testament scriptures being translated into Greek by the Jews who were in exile. They were in exile all their lives, 70 years. A lot of these people had never been back to Jerusalem and back to Israel, and they wanted scriptures in the language they spoke. So scribes of Hebrew and Jewish scribes retranslated their Hebrew scrolls into Greek. That's why you have the Septuagint, written by 70 scribes. Jesus more than likely spoke Greek just as well as he spoke Aramaic or read Hebrew. So this idea of getting so heartburnt over names, people say, well, Jesus changed Saul's name to Paul. He didn't. Paul is just the Greek version of Saul. And Paul probably got called Paul very often, considering he was a Roman citizen. Anytime he left Jerusalem and the area of Judea, he was probably called Paul everywhere else but Judea. It wasn't really a name change. It wasn't the name change that Peter would undergo from going from Simon to being called Peter. That was more of Jesus giving Peter a new name to be a title that you were going to be the rock for my church. Now, the Roman denomination has taken that way further than it is, because they go, well, that's Peter's the rock that the church was founded on. That's what Jesus said. Only if you jump over to Ephesians, you'll see that the rock that the church is being built on is Jesus Christ, who is the cornerstone, because the whole Bible is one continuous story. And you got to look other places, because you can't look at one verse. Context, it helps. But Peter would be the rock for the church. He would be one of the staunchest early leaders that they had, along with James and Paul and John, who became known as the apostle of Jesus because he was the last one alive. So, once again, a long rant to get over. don't get caught up too much in thinking there's contradictions just because they use a different name. Because it's not the way it worked. Names just, they weren't as set in stone, because when you went to a new language, they had a different translation and everybody kind of went with it. It wasn't seen as this big deal like it is now, but that's us viewing names as we do now is actually just the offshoot of multiculturalism. That's what, especially in the United States, that's what we sought after. We sought to be multicultural. Now we are. But you can't look on these old cultures that didn't have that were very insular cultures. You can't look on that any different. This is the way they conducted themselves. Not that big of a deal. But chapter 29 gets into something interesting. Now Moses said to Hobab, the son of Reuel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, so his brother-in-law, we are setting out for the place which the Lord said, I will give to you. Come with us, and we will treat you well, for the Lord has promised good things to Israel. So he's asking his brother-in-law, hey, look, we've been in this place where you guys are from, basically, for all this time. Now we're getting ready to move. Come with us. Your family to us, come with us, and we'll treat you well because the Lord has promised great things for us. And he said to him, I will not go, but I will depart to my own land and to my relatives. So Moses said to him, please do not leave, insomuch as you know how we are to camp in the wilderness, and can be our eyes. And it shall be, if you go with us, indeed it shall be that whatever good the Lord will do to us, the same we will do to you. So Moses is saying, look, don't go back home. Stay with us, because you can be our eyes and ears. You can be with us to help. Now, people will take this and be like, well, they're led by God. Yeah, but they're going into unknown territory as a people. They're following a giant cloud. But this man, his brother-in-law, can look at the cloud and say, those are storm clouds. We need to move. You see that? That's poisonous. You see that? That's going to be water. The Lord will move them, but this is an experienced tracker camper, so to speak. Like if you're going into the woods and you have a guide who can go with you, who's been in these woods 1,000 times, he knows what the different tracks for the animals look like. He knows where the brooks are. He knows where people have set up different things. He knows the lay of the land. That's what Moses is saying. You know the lay of the land. You can go with us and help us in our journey through the wilderness as we follow the Lord. So they departed from the mountain on the journey of the Lord. All right. So they departed from the mountain of the Lord on a journey of 3 days in the ark of the covenant of the Lord, went before them for 3 days' journey to set out a resting place for them. And the cloud of the Lord was above them by day when they went out from the camp. So it was whenever the ark set out that Moses said, rise up, O Lord, let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee before you. And when it rested, he said, return, O Lord, to the many thousands of Israel. So, Lord, you're going out before us. Go out before us and let your enemies be scattered. Let those who hate you flee before you. Flee before your presence. And then when it rested, he said, Lord, return. Return to the many thousands of Israel. Return to your tabernacle and dwell amongst us. Go out before us. Drive out the enemies from before us. But when it's time to come home, Lord, come home and protect us. Keep us safe. Dwell in and among us. Moving on to chapter 11. Now when the people complained, it displeased the Lord, for the Lord heard it, and his anger was aroused. So the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed some of the outskirts of the camp. Then the people cried out to Moses, and when Moses prayed to the Lord, the fire was quenched. So he called the name of the place Taberah, because the fire of the Lord burned among them. So they're finally getting to move out. Finally. And they begin to complain. They finally start moving towards their goal, and they complain. And the Lord heard it, because of course he heard it. But it angered him. Their disrespect, their lack of trust angered him. So he consumed some of the outskirts of the camp. He scared them. He terrified them. And they deserve to be terrified. The Lord is leading you to something better. And as second you go out, you're already going to complain. Because the work is too hard. Because you want the Lord to bring it to you, not lead you to it. Now the mixed multitude who are among them yielded to intense cravings. So the children of Israel also wept again and said, "Who will give us meat to eat? We remember the fish which we freely ate in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our whole being is dried up. There is nothing at all except this manna before our eyes." I forget the amount of tonnage of manna it actually took to feed these people on a daily basis. It was a lot. But now they given and yielded to intense cravings. The King James says intense lusting. They lusted after this meat. They were giving into their lusts. They were giving into their flesh, their bodily wants. They have provided for them everything they could need. But now they turn and are crying, "Remember the things we used to eat in Egypt." Not much, because you were slaves and you were beaten horribly. But remember the stuff we ate freely. You ate nothing freely. You weren't free. And it's that thing, and it's funny because there's actually an Aesop fable where I told my daughter, this is actually a horrible lesson. Because before we were Christian, I used to read Aesop's fables all the time. But the idea is that it's better to be a well cared for slave than free and destitute. No, it's not. It really isn't. The only servitude we should want to be in, the only slavery we should want to be in, is bond servitude to Christ, where we are cared for in abundance, rather than freely living in sin. But if you're living in sin, you're not living freely anyway. You're living under bondage to the sin that you're in, which is why you're destitute. Because the sin has dried you out. Here, they're complaining about all the things they want to remember having that they never had to begin with. Now, the manna was like coriander seed, and its color was the color of bdellium, of jewels. And the people went about and gathered it, ground it on millstones or beat it on mortar, cooked it in pans and made cakes of it. And its taste was like the taste of pastry prepared with oil. Also read it almost like sweet honey. And when the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna fell on it. So it was there every morning, provided every morning. It tasted good. It was abundant. They ate, they did not want for food. Then Moses heard the people weeping throughout their families, everyone at the door of his tent. And the anger of the Lord was greatly aroused, and Moses was also displeased. So Moses said to the Lord, "Why have you afflicted your servant? And why have I not found favor in your sight that you have laid the burden of these people on me?" Moses is going, "I was a shepherd. I had a family and children. I was happy. Why did you bring me out of that to go back to Egypt and afflict me with these people? How come you made me the leader of these people? Why me? I didn't want this. I didn't want to be the leader of these people. They wanted to be back in Egypt. Why didn't you just leave them there and let me be a shepherd happy in my father's home? In my father-in-law's home, why not just leave me there? Did I conceive all these people? Did I beget them, that you should say to me, carry them into your bosom? As a guardian carries a nursing child to the land which you swore to their fathers? Where am I to get meat to give to all these people? For they weep all over me, saying, give us meat, that we may eat. I am not able to bear all these people alone, because the burden is too heavy for me. If you treat me like this, please kill me here and now. If I have found favor in your sight, do not let me see my wretchedness. Like, did I give birth to these people? Why is it my job to feed them? Why am I carrying them? Just kill me now, Lord. Just kill me. Just get it over with. You don't need to torture me with these people. Just in case you're wondering about your walk with Christ and saying, this is really hard right now. Elisha said it often. Lord, just kill me. Just get it over with. Moses, just kill me. Trust me, we look at these people and we say, oh, to be like them. They didn't want to be like them. Be happy with the blessings you have. Because dragging these people through the wilderness seems like a bit of a nightmare. So the Lord said to Moses, gather to me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the elders of the people and officers over them. Bring them to the tabernacle of meeting, that they may stand there with you. Then I will come down and talk with you there, and I will take of the spirit that is upon you and put the same spirit on them. And they shall bear the burden of the people with you, that you may not bear it yourself alone. That you shall say to the people, consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, and you shall eat meat. For you have wept in the hearing of the Lord, saying, who will give us meat to eat? For it was well with us in Egypt. Therefore the Lord will give you meat to eat, and you shall eat it. So the Lord's saying, okay, look, you're bearing the burden. Go find 70 trusted people from among these tribes, and I will split the spirit of wisdom and knowledge that I have placed upon you, and I will put it on them as well, so they can help lead with you. That they are not going to be replacements of you, but they will help lead as well. Now also, go say to these people to consecrate yourselves today, because tomorrow you're going to have meat. You wanted meat, you're going to have meat. You shall eat it not one day, nor 2 days, nor 5 days, nor 10 days, nor 20 days, but for a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils and becomes loathsome to you, because you have despised the Lord who is among you, and have wept before him, saying, why did we ever come up out of Egypt? God says, you want meat? You don't like the provision I give you for you? Oh, that's fine. You want some meat? Oh, I'm going to give you some meat. I'm going to give you so much that you are going to hate the sight of it. Because you want to say, why did we ever come up out of Egypt? Because, if you forget, you cried out to me to come bring a deliverer for you. Cried out day after day, Lord, bring the deliverer to bring us out of Egypt as you promised. Now that you're out of Egypt, you want to return. Okay, let's see how you like this. And Moses said, the people whom I am among are 600,000 men on foot. Yet you had said, I will give them meat, and that they may eat for a whole month. Shall the flocks and herds be slaughtered for them to provide enough for them? Or shall all the fish of the sea be gathered together for them to provide enough for them? So Moses is saying, look, I don't understand what you're saying, God. There's a lot of people here. There's 600,000 men on foot, meaning that's the army. That's not counting the women, the children, the elderly. That's the army. Are we going to slaughter every flock and herd that we have to get them to eat for a month? Are you going to bring every fish out of the ocean, basically, to come feed us? Like, what are you doing? And the Lord said to Moses, has the Lord's arm been shortened? Now you shall see whether what I say will happen to you or not. So God's saying, do you think I've become less powerful? You saw what I did all this time. Do you think my arm's been shortened? Do you think I can't grasp what I tell you I'm going to grab? Do you think that I now can't reach for what I told you is going to happen? Like, no. Now you can sit back and watch what's going to happen, because I am just as powerful now as I was when I brought you out of Egypt. when I created all things. So Moses went out and told the people the words of the Lord, and he gathered the 70 men of the elders of the people and placed them around the tabernacle. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and spoke to him, and took of the Spirit that was upon him, and placed the same upon the 70 elders. And it happened, when the Spirit rested upon them, that they prophesied, though they never did so again. So they prophesied through the power of the Spirit, but never again after that. They had the Spirit. It's not like the Spirit ended, but this gift of the Spirit that happened right away happened immediately, but then that gift faded, and the Spirit continued through them to help them minister to Moses. That's the way I read it. But 2 men had remained in the camp. The name of one was Eldad, and the name of the other was Medad. And the Spirit rested upon them. Now they were among those listed, but who had not gone out to the tabernacle. Yet they prophesied in the camp. And a young man ran and told Moses and said, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. All right, so these were 2 that were listed of the 70. They had not gone to the tabernacle, but the Spirit rested upon them all the same. And now a young man is going, hey, whoa, these people are prophesying, Moses. So Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, one of his choice men, answered and said, Moses, my Lord, forbid them. And Moses said to him, Are you zealous for my sake? Oh, that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put his Spirit upon them. And Moses returned to the camp, he and the elders of Israel. So basically, this is an exact situation that we see in the New Testament, with Jesus and his disciples coming up, finding out that there were people healing and casting out demons in his name, although they weren't with him. And they said, stop them from doing that, Lord. Lord said, no, they're doing good. Let them continue doing it. And Moses saying, are you zealous for my sake? Do you think this is going to diminish me? No, they're doing the Lord's work. Let them do the Lord's work. And if they are out of pocket, so to speak, the Lord will handle that. So don't be zealous for my sake. I don't have an ego when it comes to the work of the Lord. Let the work of the Lord go forth and be done. Now a wind went out from the Lord, and it brought quail from the sea and left them fluttering near the camp, about a day's journey on this side and about a day's journey on the other side, all around the camp, and about 2 cubits above the surface of the ground. And the people stayed up all that night, all that day, all that night, and all the next day, and gathered the quail. He who gathered the least gathered 10 homers. They gathered an unbelievable amount of quail, is basically. And they spread them out for themselves all around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth, before it was chewed, the wrath of the Lord was aroused against his people. And the Lord struck the people with a great plague. So he called the name of the place Kibroth Hattaavah, because they were buried. They buried the people who had yielded to craving. From Kibroth Hattaavah, the people moved to Hazeroth and camped at Hazeroth. The people died of their lust. They lusted so much that it led to their death. Now, I listened to a message from my own pastor, and it was incredibly powerful. So I'm not going to do it injustice. But if you look up on the CC Philly app, you can look up Joe Foch's verse-by-verse studies and look up Hebrews 11. You can get that. But, because it's free, he is every verse of the Bible's gone through on that app. But here, this is the place where they had to bury the people who yielded to their lusts. When we give into our lust, when we give into our sin, when we give in fully to something that will destroy us, it becomes a plague to us. You give into the lust of the flesh, it will bring about your destruction. I see so many Christians today speaking about where they place their hope. we have hope in this. We have to have hope that something happens. We have to elect the right politicians. The Lord raises up our leaders. Who he wishes to raise, we will get. Doesn't mean he raised up the best leader. Because oftentimes, you get the leader you deserve. Meaning he will raise up the worst leader as judgment upon you for your sin. Israel, the northern kingdom especially, saw that often. And personally, I don't think we've had a good president since Ronald Reagan. Just saying. When we give in to the lustings of our flesh, we give in to something that very well may destroy us. When we glut ourselves on sin, it will lead to our death. Now, I'm not an Armenian, regardless of what people say, to the point where I believe we can just destroy ourselves in sin and lose our salvation. I believe it is a point of view issue. Once saved, always saved. Is it right or wrong? It's both. To the God's point of view, if he seals us at creation, we are saved. We will always be saved because we will always find our way back to him. If he doesn't, it's because we never found our way to him. We could have played church for a while, but we never actually accepted him and placed ourselves under his authority. So we won't be saved. And it will look as though we were saved and then weren't, but we never were. God doesn't choose winners and losers. He is the beginning and the end. All things are the present to him. When he seals us at creation, he is already with us at that very same moment to him in eternity. We don't live that way. The temptation of the flesh is powerful. The temptation to give in and glut ourselves on sin and find ourselves at Kibroth Havatata is strong. But unlike people who have no hope, no true hope, no true joy, who think that the happiness of glutting themselves on sin will fill that empty part of their soul. That emptiness they know is there because they are three parts, but one of them is dead. And they think they're going to fill that dead part with gluttony of sin, to fill themselves with Kibroth Havatata. Those people fall to this. And they need us to bring them out. We can't allow ourselves to join them in it. Because we have a hope. We have a joy. Because there is only one hope. You can save the soil. You can help appease the climate change gods. Everything that's going to happen is going to happen regardless. Because it's under the control of an ultimate authority. And his name is Jesus Christ. And it's only through placing yourself under his authority that you have any hope. You have any escape from the temptations to glut yourself on sin. Don't be one of the people who cries out that they don't have sin in their life. I remember when I had sin, how I missed those old days. Oh, remember the old days when we used to do this, this, and this before we got saved? Yeah, it sucked. It was terrible. People always say, oh, to be young again. No young again. I'm happy with 42. Because at 42, I got Jesus. At 22, I did not. I prefer 42. I don't care if my eyesight's going. I don't care if I'm overweight. I don't care if my knees are going. I don't care if my back is going. I don't care if my neck hurts all the time. Better with Jesus. Do not fall into the trap of Kibrat Hava'ata. Do not fall in the trap of lusting after and glutting yourself on sin. Turn to the Lord. Turn to the hope. Turn to the one who will lead you to the place that is best for you in life. Don't get left behind, being buried underneath your lust. There is one way out, one narrow path out. And you can cry that that's not fair, that it's not fair that it's narrow. But it doesn't make a difference because you were lucky. We are lucky and blessed that there's even a way out. Because we lust after death. He has provided a narrow path to life. Take it and move on. Move from Kibrat Hava'ata to wherever it is he's leading you to. All right. Went long, but that'll be it for this morning. I hope this was fruitful for you. Hope to see you again next time. But until then, be blessed.